Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm taking you to the Master League, where we're going to be showcasing a Pokemon that was already strong in the Master League that just got substantially stronger, and that is Giratina Origin. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Zacian, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, in previous seasons, Giratina was already a pretty strong meta contender, even though it was stuck with the atrocious move of Ominous Wind. Well, now that Shadow Ball is cheaper, Giratina can finally ditch Ominous Wind and run Shadow Ball Dragon Pulse and actually be a very consistent Pokemon. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And in game number 1, we've got a mirror match, Xerneas versus Xerneas, but this is not your normal Xerneas. This trainer mentioned in their battle submission, they're running some interesting movesets to try and catch opponents off guard. So they are not running Moonblast, instead they've opted for Thunder, and their Ho-Oh does not have Sacred Fire but rather has Earthquake. Not having Moonblast means that unfortunately the opponent has a pretty big HP head start, but that is a great way to fight back with a devastating close combat catch onto Giratina where it is double resisted. They stay in for a Geomancy and send out Palkia, and Palkia is really not going to appreciate Dragon Pulse. Dragon Pulse allows Giratina the ability to absolutely crush Dragon Safe swaps, and Palkia, an Aqua Tail, is not going to take the knockout here. Giratina will be able to hang on, so they're forced to go for the Spatial Rend. The Xerneas is very, very low. Xerneas is able to snipe down with Geomancy, and the opponent sends back in their Xerneas. Quick switch to Ho-Oh. Opponent's switch clock is not yet up. They're forced to fire off the close combat. That's not going to do much, and whatever they have in back did not want to see a Ho-Oh, as they will resign the match. Great lead in the next match, leading Xerneas into Kyurem White. Kyurem White is going to farm up a ton of energy. Kyurem White mistimes the charge stack, and entire free Geomancy goes through. They do not go for the Ice Burn, instead they're going to be baiting with a Fusion Flare. Xerneas waits the turn, fires off the close combat, gets the shield, waits the turn again as the opponent tries for a close combat catch onto Primarina, and now Primarina is going to be answered with Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh can survive a Hydro Cannon very comfortably, but decides to invest a shield early, as Primarina just really does not do a lot of damage. Its neutrals are very underwhelming. Earthquake from the Ho-Oh is going to land. It does hit for neutral damage, but unfortunately, Earthquake does not get same type attack bonus, so Primarina is able to hang on. There's a switch from the opponent. They're going to be sending in Palkia as their final Pokemon, and now we know why they stayed in to start. They are very, very weak to Xerneas. In comes Xerneas, but disaster strikes, accidentally playing to a CMP tie that it does not win. Xerneas gets KO'd, and the close combat is lost. In comes Giratina, and Giratina is going to need an incredibly aggressive farm down to win. Palkia able to make the last second Spatial Rend. Shield comes up from the Giratina, and Giratina is now going to be met with the Kyurem. The game comes down to this. Will the opponent land the Ice Burn? Will there be a catch? Giratina gets the catch. Oh my goodness. Catching the Ice Burn onto the Ho-Oh, and that should secure the game. Back in comes Giratina, able to make it to the Dragon Pulse. Dragon Pulse is going to be knocking out the Kyurem. They have a very low health Primarina in the back. In comes Primarina, that gets farmed down. In comes Palkia, that gets farmed as well. And that is a good game. We move to the next match, picking up a terrible lead, Xerneas into Lunala. Unfortunately, when you sacrifice Moonblast, you kind of sacrifice your neutral matchups. So Lunala is going to absolutely steamroll Xerneas in this matchup. Shadow Ball lands, Xerneas can't really fight back, so it's going to be pivoting out and sending in the Giratina. Shadow Claw's adding up quite a bit on Lunala. That's double super effective damage. The shield comes up on the Shadow Ball. Lunala staying in. They think they can get there, but they can't. They get fully farmed down, and Giratina is given a free 100 energy. Opponent sends in Palkia, but Palkia is not going to appreciate the Dragon Pulses. Dragon Pulse after Dragon Pulse going to be launched at this Palkia. Palkia puts up the shield, Xerneas snipes, but again, here's where Moonblast would be so much better than Thunder, as Thunder just doesn't do nearly the same amount of damage. In comes Zacian. Zacian gets a big farm down, but Zacian is about to get absolutely crushed by Ho-Oh. In comes Ho-Oh, Zacian firing off the Behemoth Blade. It's an incredibly efficient attack, but Ho-Oh having that very clutch resistance puts Ho-Oh completely in the driver's seat. Poor timing from the opponent as they fire off Behemoth Blade number 2. They could have done one more Metal Claw, but realistically, this game is over. Sniped down with the Giratina, Ho-Oh has the charge attack loaded, so the moment Palkia gets brought in, it's a very easy no-shield on the Giratina, because as long as Ho-Oh has a shield, this game is over. Back in comes Ho-Oh, Brave Bird locked and loaded. It's not even at 1 HP, so the opponent can't even try for the shield kill. Brave Bird takes the knockout and secures the win. It's Xerneas into Zekrom in the next match. Unfortunately, another matchup that's made substantially worse by a lack of Moonblast. However, the good news is the opponent doesn't know yet that there's no Moonblast, so they safe switch into Metagross, and they're getting incinerated by Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh more than happy to absorb 2 Meteor Mashes. Ho-Oh will have to fire off energy here, but Ho-Oh will still exit 1 Incinerate off of that Earthquake to inflict some pretty big damage. Ho-Oh, oh no, commits to the farm down, and unfortunately that backfires. The speed of Metagross make it a 3rd Meteor Mash, and now giving up a shield, having to go down a shield in a mid-game where you have such a type advantage is really going to make this a difficult game to win. In comes Xerneas, in the back is Zacian, and oh my goodness, Zacian should unfortunately be able to sweep this game. Close combat is going to be shielded by the Zacian. In comes Giratina, and Giratina is going to take monster damage from Behemoth Blade. The shield comes up, but Zacian is just too deadly at an advantage, and with Ho already baited out, unfortunately, I don't really think there's anything that Jetsen can do, as long as the opponent manages their energy well. Shield comes up, in comes Zekrom. Zekrom, unfortunately, Giratina not going to be able to farm it down. Giratina's forced to throw energy. Shadow Ball will take the KO, and back in comes the Zacian. And Zacian is managing their energy well, and the opponent has won this game. Behemoth Blade takes the knockout onto Giratina. In comes the Xerneas, trying to get to the close combat, but that energy management from the opponent was exquisite. Behemoth Blade KOs the Xerneas, and the opponent takes the win. We move to the next match, looking for a bit of redemption, but it's a core breaker lead, leading Xerneas into Ice Fang Zamazenta. Unfortunately, Ice Fang Zamazenta is going to do well into both the Xerneas and the Giratina. Xerneas will fire off the close combat, the no shield comes out from the opponent, and there is going to be the safe switch into Giratina. Zamazenta will fire off Behemoth Bash. Luckily, that doesn't do a ton of damage, and Giratina is going to continue the farm and fire off the Shadow Ball to prevent Behemoth Bash number 2 from being reached. Shadow Ball will take the KO. Down goes Zamazenta, and the opponent sends in Lunala. Lunala's going to pay a pretty significant price here. These Shadow Claws are adding up. They've already lost about a quarter of their health. Shield goes up on the Shadow Ball. Aggressive pivot into Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh, gonna be no shielding. Shadow Ball does not two-shot, but it does inflict some pretty significant damage. Ho-Oh trying to get to a charge stack, but the energy advantage on Lunala is proven to be a pretty big problem. Shield comes up from Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh farming up to 100 energy and firing off this Earthquake. Earthquake will easily be able to take the knockout onto Lunala. Lunala with the no shield. In the back is Dawn Wings Necrozma, and this is going to be a tricky endgame because, again, Xerneas without Moonblast is going to not be able to do nearly as much damage as it typically would. Xerneas gets to the Thunder, but Thunder is just not really going to move the needle in a meaningful way. That's still a lot of HP remaining on the Dawn Wings. You ever decide to call a bait here? No, the shield comes up, and they do go for the Dark Pulse bait. Xerneas gonna fire off the triple resisted close combat. Even though it's triple resisted, this is still valuable damage. In my eyes, this is the right call, because that plus the Geomancies will get the opponent low enough that this should be 1 Shadow Claw range. Dark Pulse takes the knockout, Giratina gets the farm down, and against all odds, able to fight back and secure the win. Great lead in the next match, leading Xerneas into Palkia. Opponent safe switches into Ho-Oh, and Xerneas is going to get to fire off Thunder. Thunder lands big damage onto Ho-Oh, and in comes Giratina. Ho-Oh farms to 100 energy, gonna look to unleash Brave Bird. Unfortunately, once their defense is at -3, I don't think 3 Shadow Claws will knock out here. Yeah, they would not have taken the KO, so Giratina is actually forced to fire off energy, and Shadow Ball will take the knockout. Back in comes the Palkia. Palkia looking for a farm down that they're not going to get. Dragon Pulse is reached by the Giratina. Dragon Pulse connects, and that puts them deep into the red. In comes Xerneas. The Geomancy goes through, which means this Palkia has now been KO'd. Aqua Tail not going to do much. What do they have in the back? They have Primarina, and this game should be a win because, again, Primarina just doesn't really have an ability to charm down after a Hydro Cannon lands. So for Ho-Oh, Ho-Oh should be in a pretty good spot. Ho-Oh going to be putting up the shield because at some point you're going to have to shield something in this game. It's matchups like these where Primarina's fraudulent stats get exposed. Because look at Primarina. It's a water type, and it's just getting torn to shreds by Incinerate. Shield goes up on the Hydro Cannon. Ho-Oh is at 100 energy, so it's going to have to undertap the Earthquake. Earthquake is going to be shielded. Ho-Oh is going to get to the Brave Bird. They lost basically 2/3 of their health bar off of resisted Incinerates. Primarina, it's a typing merchant. Unfortunately, in neutral matchups, it just cannot hold weight. Great lead in the next match. Xerneas into Shadow Tyranitar. These Geomancies are shredding the Tyranitar, and Tyranitar connects with a hard-hitting Stone Edge. Tyranitar would basically be the worst-case scenario for this backline. So, honestly, seeing the Tyranitar here is very, very nice. Xerneas now going to be at -4, but pressuring a second shield or just taking the knockout. Opponent just lets themselves get KO'd. In comes Giratina as the opponent brings in Zamazenta. With how low the Xerneas was and how strong of an answer there is to Zamazenta in the back with Ho-Oh, I definitely think switching out here unfortunately was a bit of a misplay, because Xerneas wouldn't have given a lot of farm because it was at -4 defense, and then Ho-Oh is a complete wall to Zamazenta's charge attacks. Whereas now, unfortunately, the Giratina took a ton of damage from Ice Fang. It had to go down a shield, so now it's evens. And no, in the back is Palkia, and Palkia is very likely to sweep here. Palkia gonna be hit with a Dragon Pulse. You have to hope they no shield, but they put up the shield, and things are looking very bad. There's no energy available on the Xerneas. In comes Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is gonna take huge damage from Aquatail. Aquatail is gonna land. There's so much energy available on this Palkia. Aquatail, it'll come very close to knocking out here. Ho-Oh survives, but the Dragon Breath takes the knockout, and unfortunately that is going to be a loss. I've definitely been guilty of this in the past as well, where sometimes I will pivot out to not surrender a farm down, and it ends up costing me the game, and unfortunately, that's what happened in this one, where if Xerneas just let itself get farmed down, this game was a very straightforward win. Bad lead in the next match for Xerneas as it leads into Zacian. Immediate safe switch into Giratina. Giratina gonna be answered with a Shadow Claw Kyurem Black. And Kyurem is gonna be taking massive damage from Dragon Pulse unless they decide to shield. Opponent will put up the shield. Giratina, honestly, taking these Shadow Claws pretty decently, and I think Giratina will always be no shielding, forcing the opponent to go for the Freeze Shock. But they go for a Fusion Bolt. That's not gonna cut it. Giratina now gonna be shielding up a Fusion Bolt, as Giratina will, at the very least, get to guarantee the final shield or switch advantage. Giratina gonna be full, sending the Dragon Pulse. Opponent, no shields, and they pay the price as down goes Kyurem, and switch advantage has been flipped. This means that Zacian, which would have been an absolute terror, is now gonna be aligned onto Ho-Oh, and guess what? The Giratina's not done. The new Shadow Ball pacing coming in clutch, getting big damage onto the Zacian. In comes Ho-Oh, and in the back is Dawn Wings Necrozma. Dawn Wings taking some pretty significant damage from the Incinerates. Brave Bird launched at the Dawn Wings, shield comes up, and in comes Xerneas. This is a situation where this would be pretty close to Moonblast range, but again with Thunder, this could get a little bit tricky. Moongeist lands, Xerneas with the bulk, able to hang on and fire off the Thunder. Thunder not going to do much here, as the Dawn Wings is able to hang on, but Ho-Oh with a shield should be able to take home this win, as Ho-Oh can always just shield up. The Incinerate will take the knockout as they go for the Moongeist. Back in comes the Zacian, and there's just nothing that Zacian can do here. Zacian just does not have the damage output. Close combat is going to land. Ho-Oh going for a Brave Bird, not going to hit any of the bubbles. The zero charge Brave Bird takes the knockout anyway, and that's a good game. Same leads in the next match, Xerneas into Zacian. The safe switch into Giratina, this time going to be answered by a more conventional dragon, and that is Palkia. Palkia, same as the Kyurem Black, not going to appreciate the Dragon Pulse. Dragon Pulse is going to land, and just like that, Giratina will be able to wrestle switch advantage away from this Palkia. Spatial Ren does get shielded. Giratina looking for the farm down here. Shadow Claw down, and that is a massive switch flip. Back in comes the Zacian. Zacian, if they're reading Ho in the back, they are not going to be shielding it. The Shadow Ball gets shielded. They are not expecting that it's going to be the Ho-Oh. Otherwise, they would not have put up the shield. Another Shadow Ball reached by this Giratina. Opponent going to be no shielding this one. Can they get a farm down? No, they can't. Giratina, the pacing, could have made yet another Shadow Ball, and that forces the opponent to throw energy. In the back, the opponent has Shadow Apex Ho-Oh, and this is a scenario where Thunder could potentially put in some work. Xerneas with the no shield, they go for the Brave Bird. Oh no, it takes the knockout. I know a regular Ho-Oh, a charge attack would not KO there, but unfortunately from the Shadow, it just cleanly knocks out. Xerneas finally got a chance to use Thunder, and unfortunately, it was not even given the chance, as Brave Bird just took the KO. Opponent firing off another Brave Bird. Their defense is so heavily debuffed. Great turn weight. In comes Zacian trying for the game-winning sack swap, but it's not to be. Behemoth Blade lands. Ho-Oh survives. Ho-Oh exits with a Brave Bird loaded, and that's going to be all she wrote. Back-to-back Zacian leads, not a problem. Back-to-back wins, and that's a good game. Hopping into the final match, and what do you know? One more Zacian lead for the road. Safe switch Giratina going to be answered with Palkia once again. Last Palkia did not respect the Dragon Pulse, and that definitely made the game substantially easier. Dragon Pulse into the Palkia this time will be shielded, and at this point, Giratina is just always going to be no shielding. You want to force the opponent to make the right play, which is go for the Spatial Rend. They will go for the Spatial Rend, so a good read by the opponent, and then you just want to bring in the Xerneas and farm up as much energy as you possibly can. Because unfortunately, the Xerneas is not going to be able to do much into that Zacian. It's going to be all up to the Ho-Oh up a shield to try and sweep. Xerneas trying to get very close to the back-to-back close combats, but another Aqua Tail is locked and loaded. That actually ends up being a CMP tie there, so the opponent able to get this Xerneas very low. Xerneas close to a charge stack, but it's all up to Ho-Oh. In comes Ho-Oh into the Zacian. In the back, opponent has Eternatus. The Eternatus stops attacking. What is happening? I don't know if they lagged, if they looked away from their phone, but they're not going to appreciate this Earthquake. The Earthquake tech pays off in the final battle. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. All in all, I was very impressed with Giratina Origin in these battles. To be honest, it wasn't really a Pokemon that was on my radar for this Master League rotation, but man, I really feel like with the Shadow Ball Dragon Pulse moveset, Giratina now has incredible consistency, whereas previously, when it was stuck with Ominous Wind, it was very feast or famine. If you got an Ominous Wind bait called and you didn't get a boost, you kind of just lost the game. Whereas now, you're not really sacrificing much in terms of pacing because you're still able to double up on charge attacks thanks to 50 energy Shadow Ball. But now, no matter what you throw, you're able to output some really nice damage. So I do think this is a pretty nice buff to Giratina. I know last season some people were even opting for this moveset anyway, even though you couldn't double up. So now this moveset is just strictly better in my eyes. I don't think there's a reason to run Ominous Wind because the damage per energy on Ominous Wind is just truly atrocious and you're barely saving any energy to throw it. You're basically just fishing for a boost. And the boost odds on Ominous Wind are not very high. So I do think this is a really nice improvement for Giratina Origin, and it makes Giratina Origin an extremely strong anti-meta Pokemon. I don't think it's on the same level as Pokemon like Lunala, which I think is just kind of the best Master League Pokemon right now, Pokemon like Lunala and Reshiram, but I think it's right a tier below that, where it's very usable, you can use it as an anchor of a team to get wins, and its energy kind of goes everywhere. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.